What is up, everybody, and welcome back to this week's episode of Thursday's Theology. My name is Jeff, and I'm your host. And if you're just now joining us in Drake's story, we are currently in the catacombs underneath the church, trying to explore what's down here. And, we got through that secret passage. There's a lot of people shooting at us, but, it's nothing out of the ordinary for, for Drake and Uncharted. So I want to start off this episode by actually apologizing for something that I said last week. And that is, I talked about the next series that we're going to be doing revolving around this idea of should Christians do this, should Christians do that. And I want to do that. I'm going to do that series, no problem. However, it's going to be postponed until after the next series that I actually want to do. But this episode is actually going to be dedicated to a couple of things. One, just kind of wrapping up some thoughts of the parables, and then two, just kind of explaining what's going to be happening with Thursday's Theology and some of the plans we have for it going forward. So just bear with me, and we'll try to make it quick. So first of all, some final thoughts on the parables of Jesus, and that is, I have really enjoyed, I mean, I've said this throughout the whole thing, but I've really enjoyed studying the parables of Jesus just because out of all the teachings of the New Testament, the parables of Jesus are ones that can be discussed in certain time restraints. And what I mean by that is the parable of the sower we covered a couple weeks ago. It's easy to kind of talk about that as an isolated incident, like, oh, this is what Jesus is saying here at this point. The parable of the prodigal son, this is what Jesus is saying to his audience at this point in time. So it's really easy to be able to study them in isolation from one another. That's not to say that you need to read them out of context or take them out of context. That's not what I'm saying at all. But what I am saying is for the purposes of, a 10 to 12 minute video on theology, it really is easier to do something like the parables because they're very, very self-contained. So I just wanted to mention that, that I think that's kind of a cool thing. But the other reason that I've really enjoyed studying the parables is that I think they have a lot to say about what Jesus is trying to accomplish through his teaching and also what Jesus is trying to tell his audience. Just with what he is teaching and everything surrounding that, parables are the means in which a lot more people can understand what Jesus is trying to say, as opposed to him using these really, really eloquent Jewish legal jargon-filled sermons. By using parables, he's making it much more approachable by those in his audience, and I think I do really, really appreciate that, because for someone like me who's reading it 2,000 years removed, it's very easy for me to pick up on some of the themes that Jesus is talking about without having to have an extended knowledge of Jewish law and custom. So I just wanted to express my appreciation for that. But anyway, I encourage this series has not covered nearly all the parables. There's so many more parables that we could have covered. The ones I chose because I think they're very representative of the larger trends of what Jesus is teaching. But I highly encourage you to study the parables for yourself. There is a wealth of information and wisdom contained in the parables. So I really, really want to encourage each and every one of you to read them and study them for yourself, because they are extremely, extremely helpful. So that being said, I have really appreciated the ability to go through the parables with you. I think out of all the videos that we've done so far, it's probably been my favorite series, and that is just because, all the reasons I mentioned before. So as for the future of this channel, me and my producer Tom have been really thinking a lot about how best to utilize this platform, how best to use YouTube and all the things that they offer to our advantage. And what I want to announce is a couple of different things. One, we are going to be taking a summer hiatus. We're going to take the month of July off, and it's not because we don't like doing this or anything like that. It's actually just because I'm currently taking a couple of summer classes in seminary, and they're a lot more intense than I thought they would be, so the workload is increased. That on top of having a full-time pastoral job can be tough. And then I have a conference that I'm going to in Tennessee at the end of July, so I wouldn't be able to be making content for that during that time anyway. So we're going to be taking the month of July off just as a summer hiatus to regroup and to help start getting some content together to come back in August. Now, when we come back in August, the announcement I have is that we're actually going to be accompanying Thursday's Theology YouTube channel with a podcast. And not every single episode is going to have a longer podcast attached to it, but the podcast is basically going to be a platform that we can use to further discuss ideas and theology just beyond the scope of a 10-minute video. We'll still be doing the weekly 10-minute videos, and we'll kind of condense what we talk about. But there are some things upcoming, some topics upcoming, and people that I'm going to have guest star that I would like the opportunity to sit down and have a longer conversation with. So we're going to be starting with a podcast in August to allow ourselves more time to talk to our guests, more time to flesh out ideas and that sort of thing. It's going to be in addition to Thursday's Theology. So basically what we're going to be doing is that we'll have a video, and the video will be, highlights, 1 or 2 bullet points of what we're going to be talking about. And then the podcast will be an area where we can expand further upon those points and have more time to develop the ideas and everything. So we're really excited about that, just because we have some really exciting topics coming up, as well as some really cool guest stars coming up. I'm working with a group of people to collaborate. I'm collaborating with a group of people to help come up with content. That way all of you don't hear just my interpretation or my ideas of theology, but you can get a wider understanding of theological perspective. So I'm really excited about that. So yeah, I'm wanted to announce that and tell you guys that that's what's going on. We'll be gone for the month of July, but we'll be back in August and launching a new podcast to accompany this channel. Now, for the series, I know last week I said that we were going to be going into what was the name of it? Should Christians do this? And the topics I wanted to cover in that are, should Christians drink? Should Christians smoke? Should Christians get tattoos? Should Christians gamble? Etc., etc. Because all of those things were things that I heard growing up were forbidden, or were, Christians don't do that. You don't go to parties. You don't drink. You don't smoke. You don't do this, this, and this. So I wanted to explore a little bit of what that means, and, should a Christian get a tattoo? I mean, I have a tattoo on my forearm, and I don't think it makes me less of a Christian than somebody that doesn't have tattoos. But we're going to be diving into that in that series. However, that series will actually be postponed until after we come back. So let me explain. I have a really good friend named Jake, who is part of the Catholic Church, and he is a wealth of information regarding liturgical living, the lives of the saints, the traditions of the Catholic Church, etc., etc. And what I decided to do is he's in town for the next couple months, and what I wanted to do with him is I wanted to create a series called Summer with the Saints. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be talking about, why is it important that we study the lives of the saints? What is it about their lives that can inform who we are? What is it about their lives that can really speak into how we understand the church, how we understand each other, how we understand tradition, etc.? And then after that, I'm going to have Jake on every single week, and he's going to give us the life of a saint. He's picked out 5 or 6 saints, and he's just going to give us a brief introduction to their life, some of the things that they learned, some of the things that they're known for, their lives before, because believe it or not, one of the biggest misconceptions about the saints is that they were born holy and they lived holy lives. But the truth is, the majority of the saints actually come from really, really messed up backgrounds. For instance, St. Augustine is one of the foundations of Western theology. And before coming to faith, he was actually kind of a jerk. He was really arrogant. He was really full of himself. He partied a lot with his friends, and he just had a very, very interesting background, we should say, before becoming a Christian and before being canonized. So I wanted to take the opportunity to introduce my audience to the lives of the saints and talk about what we can learn from them. So my friend Jake is going to be coming in and helping guest star in that. That's going to be our first podcast, is why why studying the lives of the saints are important. We're going to expand upon that question. And yeah, so the next series, when we come back in August, will be Summer with the Saints. And we're pretty excited about it just because I really, really love Jake. I really love learning from him. I really love everything that he offers. And I want to utilize that and use it for our purposes and for our channel. So when we come back in August, we'll be doing a series called Summer with the Saints. And it'll feature my good friend Jake. After Summer with the Saints, then that is when we'll get into the topic of should a Christian do this. So again, I apologize for a little bit of the miscommunication. I understand that there might have been some confusion or whatever with that. But I just want to let you know we're taking the month of July off just to regroup and to think about how we can better utilize this platform. And when we come back in August, we're going to be back with a new series called Summer with the Saints. And we're going to be launching our podcast. So there's a lot of exciting things happening for us at Thursday's Theology. I'm really, really excited to be able to include more people in the conversation in the form of guest stars. I think it's important for all of you, the audience, to be exposed to different theological opinions than mine. Because as much as I think I know what I'm talking about sometimes, it also helps to get a different perspective on things. For instance, that's why I asked Jake, because growing up in the Catholic Church, for him, he knows a lot more about Catholic tradition than I do. So I want to be able to expose that to my audience. So all that to say, I'm really, really excited for things that are going on here. I'm really, really excited for what's coming up and some of the ideas and thoughts we have for the future of this channel. We want to thank you guys for watching, and yeah, we just appreciate your time. And remember, theology doesn't always have to be difficult. It is simply the study of who God is. Take care. We'll see you in August.